Good morning. I'm trying a different setup again today. So a different light, the camera more kind of horizontal with my face. Let me know what you think. Yeah. So I just wanted to say hello again today, make another video, ask how you're all doing. It's not really anything specific I'd like to talk about today. Although I did read in the news yesterday about, well, maybe we should talk about corruption. Because I know the UK, we kind of feel we don't have corruption. And I say not like corruption you see in kind of Russia or Venezuela or China or something like that. But our corruption's kind of different. You know, our politicians aren't getting paid off, but they are getting handouts by the looks of it. So, anyway, let's talk about corruption, shall we? Because I've forgotten the name now. MedPro. I don't know if you've seen that name, but Google it and see what comes up. So anyway, let me give you the backstory of what I understand it was. So during COVID, the government introduced what they called, is it fast track or fast lanes? Something along those lines, where medical supplies could get sold to the NHS in a faster way. So I think it was to do with procurement. So there's a long process that the NHS goes through to procure items, to purchase them, essentially. But because of COVID, they didn't want to have to wait for all these back checks to happen. So a few companies were allowed to get fast-tracked to supply the NHS with medical PPE, personal protective equipment. And one of these companies, which was created during COVID, okay, was a company called MedPro. So, yeah, which is kind of odd anyway, because there's plenty of companies in the world supplying PPE or medical PPE. But supposedly this one needed to be created during COVID. Anyway, bit of a backstory on this MedPro. MedPro was created by, I can't remember his name. Doesn't really matter what his name is, by some guy, and probably a few other guys, but this guy was involved in it. By a guy, a British guy, who's married to a lord. Here we go. So, and I can't remember this lord's name now, it's a woman, Mahone. Yeah, when you Google MedPro, you'll find out. But anyway, it's a lord, a lady. A lady? A lord? Are they all called lords? Regardless, I don't know if you guys know much about the House of Lords, but they're unelected representatives of, you know, the UK public. Now we could go into if the House of Lords is relevant today, or useful, or whether or not the UK still needs it. I'm kind of indifferent about the House of Lords, because for one, I believe in democracy. So if we believe in democracy, then the House of Lords shouldn't really be a thing. But two, I do believe in long-term thinking, right, which democracy doesn't do. So the one benefit of the House of Lords that I can see is that because they're unelected, they're not influenced by short-term voting, which our politicians today are, massively, right? They don't think further than 4 years in the future, right? Which is really detrimental to a country. However, before you start calling me a nationalist or some sort of, you know, fascist, it's still better than a dictatorship. Right, that's the last thing I would want. So anyway, we digress to the House of Lords. So maybe I'll look into a House of Lords one day, and we'll have a more in-depth discussion about that. So anyway, this company, MedPro, was created by this guy who's married to this woman who's in the House of Lords. And they won a contract. Magically, they won a contract. And you know, I can't get to the actual truth, but it was supposedly, apparently, due to this House of Lords lady, Moan. I'm saying that completely wrong. I think it was M-O-A-N? So, yeah, right there, you're suspicious. So a new company who's never made PPE equipment, medical PPE equipment before, was created during COVID and won a contract to supply the NHS with PPE. So anyway, it's just come to light. So that, right, so this is what they supplied as well. Let's get this right. So they supplied, I think it was £83.5 million worth of masks. Okay, 83 and that's an incredible amount of masks. And it's an incredible amount of money. So like the Joe public, like me and you, £83 million. Wow. And then they provided £122 million of surgical scrubs. £122 million. So this company made 200 million straight off the bat. I don't know what their profit margin was, but probably pretty good once you so anyway, one thing, like, you know, I don't like to hate on everyone all the time, but the one thing Labour has done well is, you know, investigated this. Because this is Conservatives all over, right? You can see this is Conservative corruption at its fucking finest. So Labour investigated it. Do you know what, right? So this MedPro company provided £122 million of surgical gowns, scrubs, whatever they're called, which weren't sterilised. What a bunch of wankers, right? So they just made these scrubs, didn't produce them correctly, and then sold them to the NHS. You know what the NHS is like, it's just bogged down in bureaucracy. But, thank God, whoever was looking after this investigation, conducting this investigation, did a good job. Right, because they were unsterilised. So, MedPro has to pay back the full £122 million. Get in there, boys! Okay, so like, honesty has won out in this, and like good investigation, yeah. He still keeps the 83 million of the masks, nevertheless. But they have to pay back the 122 million, and obviously this lord is saying that she had nothing to do with it, and I've not heard any comment from her husband, you know, who probably is like an outsider and didn't really get involved in the company, but takes a massive chunk of the profit, right? You know what they're going to say, you know it. But at the end of the day, this is corruption, and this is corruption at one of the highest levels. And we need... I always remember, I don't know where I heard it, but maybe it was a Boris Johnson interview, or some sort of political interview, where they said about David Cameron saying, if you don't do this, then I won't help you with this. And this is our corruption, right? So it's like, you know, you help me, I'll help you in the future. You know, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And this is how, you know, because why would it be that only elitists, private school kids become high-level politicians? Right? If there wasn't corruption, then that wouldn't be the case. It's not like they're any more intelligent than anyone else. Yeah, they're better educated and they speak better, but that doesn't mean anything. Right? It doesn't mean their brain functions any better. It doesn't mean that they can solve problems any better than anyone else. And part of being a politician is actually being a likeable human being, right? So interacting with other political figures around the world and becoming friends and building relationships with these people. Right? Are they any better than, you know, your council estate guy or girl? No. but nevertheless, they still. I think the political game, you know, it's like a. I don't know if you guys have ever worked in an office, but when you work in an office, there's like this scramble, this like under the surface game that's played, right? Where it's like, oh, you know, that job's becoming available. Who do I need to brown nose, or you know, how do I need to act to get into that position? And there's like a small chess game going on, right? And everyone's kind of like really nice to each other on a surface level, but deep down they know, you know, they know that they have to fuck each other over to get a leg up, right? Oh, I want that extra £2 an hour raise, you know, or I want that position of manager, right? And it's like a really bad way to kind of run an organisation. But I think, you know, politics is probably like an even worse version of that, right? You know, they're all trying to scramble to get into positions, and you know, it's like Caesar, right, in the Roman Empire, daggers in the back. So I'm sure the political game's difficult to play. I am, and to get to the top, to get to Keir Starmer's level, or David Cameron, or Boris Johnson, you know, our Prime Minister level, you've probably got to play the game really well. So anyway, yeah, that was what I was thinking reading that article yesterday. MedPro is the company, MedPro, so have a look into it if you've got time. But how you all doing? You know, I hope you're well. It looks like winter's upon us. Hope you've all had a good summer. And yeah, as always, if you need to talk to me, or you just want to get anything off your back, let me know. I think if you don't want to write anything in the comments, maybe there's a different way you can contact me. I don't know if I can put my email on the page information. Yeah, like I will respond. But as always, take a pause take a pause in your day sometime, just on your own, in quiet. If you're going through something difficult, just think it through. It's not always bad. You know, what benefits might come from it. You're strong enough to work through it. You're strong enough to overcome it. Is more importantly, you can overcome it, and you will overcome it. And if you need any help with that, let me know. So take a pause and have a great day. Bye.